Hello, everybody. This is the man, the myth, the legend, the franchise, the monopoly that is Micky Byggs, right here on Wrestling Spotlight with another great guest. When it comes to big men in pro wrestling, many names come to mind. One-man gang, Akeem, the African Dream, King Kong Bundy. But our next guest is the baddest of big men in the industry. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Big Crush, Barrington Hughes. Barrington, welcome to Wrestling Spotlight.
Absolute pleasure to be here, Mickey. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing the same as always, hanging and banging and chilling and getting these interviews knocked out.
Awesome.
So, you've been in the industry quite a long time. Actually, what is it, like 6-7 years now?
I wish. It's actually been a little bit more, about close to 3. Still relatively new to the game, but you wouldn't be able to tell, surprisingly.
Well, that's why I was mistaken on the 6-7 years then, because from your footage, you look like you're a lot more experienced than that. So you've had a lot of things going on in your career, and tell the fans of Wrestling Spotlight, what the highlight of your career has been so far.
There hasn't been anything in the ring in particularly, but just being under the guidance and the mentorship of Fred Ottman, who most know as the Shockmaster, Typhoon, Tugboat, who goes by many guises. Just having the opportunity to have him as someone that I can learn from, someone that I could pick the brain of and learn how to be a good big man has been probably the best highlight of my life so far.
Now, have you had any high-profile matches with any big names just yet?
You know what? I recently came off of a match with the Almighty Sheik, former 3-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I would have to say it's probably been one of the hardest hitting bouts I've been a part of. Needless to say, there was an incident afterwards that went beyond the scope of your traditional pro wrestling match, but that incident won't be addressed in too much detail for now.
I think you and I spoke about that briefly the other night.
We did.
Yes. What was it like working with the Sheik? I mean, even though you had that incident, is it something that you would do again?
You know what? Given the circumstances, I would do it again. And it's just in the context of being professional. And if we have an opportunity to go out and tear the house up and bring fans in and give them their money's worth, it's definitely worth the bumps and bruises and a little stiff shot here or there.
Excellent. Now, what are your specific aspirations within the business?
Most individuals, their goal is to get up north, as we call it, to the WWE, Stamford, Connecticut. Mine is a little bit different. My goal is to be a part of one of the big 2 major Japanese wrestling promotions in either All Japan or New Japan. I would also like to travel the world and wrestle in countries that don't feature wrestling as a predominant sport or have a huge spotlight on it, just to bring something new to their palate.
Interesting take on that. Yeah. Now, why New Japan? Why Japan? Is there any specific reason you'd like Japan versus the up north company as you talked?
I think it's just the view of wrestling as a whole between the different countries, because even between the promotions of All Japan and New Japan, professional wrestling is looked at as more of a sport. The participants are looked at as athletes, almost demigods, as opposed to in the United States, where they're lauded either as a high-profile celebrity or they're looked at as a joke. There's no real gray area when it comes to the United States. But in Japan, everyone is looked at as a respectable athlete from top to bottom.
Excellent. Now, in your career that, like you said, you've been in a 3 years now, any big man specifically other than Typhoon that has inspired you to do what you do?
First thing that comes to mind is several individuals, but this one off the top of my head, who we recently lost, the late great Nelson Frazier, Big Daddy V, Viscera, Mabel, Nelson Knight. He went under many, many guys, many, many names, and he was very bare bones with me. He was very straightforward. He told me what needed to be done, and there was no if, ands, or but about it. He was one that definitely helped me. Sir Mo was another great big man who was highly underrated. That's helped me a lot. Even up to recently, Goldust. About a year ago, I had the opportunity to, not only be on a show with him, but to travel back and forth with him. And just that time alone, it was beyond any payday, any sort of compensation I could have received or any sort of money you would pay for a seminar, because that was just unequaled knowledge and unequaled time to just learn and absorb.
Absolutely. Some of those road trips can be very valuable and very priceless if you're with the right person on the road.
Absolutely.
Now, has anybody ever compared you to, say, like Abdullah the Butcher?
I've heard, you know what? I've heard them all. I've heard Viscera. I've heard Mark Henry. I've heard the Black Dusty. I've heard Abdullah. I've heard any name you could think of size-wise when it comes to professional wrestling, I've been compared to, and I don't look at it as a sense of mockery. It's a sense of, if that's who I remind you of, I got to be doing something right.
I would agree with that 100%. Now, tell the fans, what is the particular type of character that you portray? I know you're part of the tag team. What is it called? Power. And
the Power.
You know, what is the character that you portray out there in the ring?
You know, the old adage goes, when you're portraying a role, it should be yourself magnified, which is basically who I am. I'm a very passionate individual. I'm a very caring individual. I'm a very straightforward, no nonsense, put my nose to the grindstone and punch your face in kind of individual. You know, I just go out and I represent people. I represent the minority. I represent Jamaica. I represent Haiti. I represent nations and people that have never had the opportunity to do what they love and live their dream. That's who I represent, and that's what I do.
Interesting. I like that concept, and you don't see a lot of people actually doing that these days. You see everybody wanting to be this person or be that person, and they want to be just like the Undertaker because he's the dead man. And you know, I can understand what you're saying. My character is an extension of my real life self, and I pretty much sleep, eat, and breathe my character because that is me. So I do understand that concept. Now, when you broke into the business, being a big guy, was it especially challenging for you?
It was. You know, I luckily had a really great trainer in Rusty Brooks, a part of the Malenko family tree. And from there, you know, I just really didn't get a lot of opportunities to start out because everybody has the stigma about big men. Big men stand in the middle of the ring and do nothing, and they get blown up after running the ropes 2 or 3 times and this and that, you know. And I really had to go out there and, you know, work twice as hard to be considered equal, you know. And when I was able to show that I had not only the size, the strength, the surprising agility, those bursts of speed, and have that endurance on top of it, I was able to open up a lot of eyes and open up a lot of doors with it.
And that's the key. You've got to be willing to go out there and take what you want. You cannot be afraid to fail. You know, your failures cannot be an option for anybody. And the minute you have it set in your mind that you're going to do it, then you know what, you'll do it. And you know, I can say that, you know what, you're living your dream, and that's, you know, that's something to be admired. Because it's hard for, you know, us big guys to do anything in this business without a stigmata attached to us.
Of course, that's very.
Now, when you first broke into the business, you know, who were you working for, and what types of, you know, matches were you thrown into, as, you know, as being a traditional big guy, as they say?
You know, with the big guy stigma, it's let's throw you out there for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, see what you can do. I was working for FOW at the time. One of my first matches was with Live Professional Wrestling, which is a promotion that's no longer around, but was really fun to work for. ICW in Miami, that's no longer around, but another fun promotion to work for. They were just giving me small bits and opportunities, and I really started to take off as a part of my first tag team, the Hardliners. It was myself and Jordan Rayner, who's now known as Sasso Rivera, and FIP. Me and him actually had a very similar, you know, disgruntlement about wrestling, not being given the proper opportunities given our size. Rayner is 6'5" and 360. You know, with myself being 6'2", 400, you know, we were a pair of very dominant men in the ring. You know.
Yeah, I can see where that dominance would come into play. Have you ever found that, you know, when you're getting ready to get, you know, ready for your matches and the show, any of your opponents are intimidated by you?
I've had instances where guys will come in the back and they'll look at the card and they'll see that they're lined up with me and be like, oh no. It's just, oh God, I got this big at so-and-so. I don't know what's going to happen. He's not going to want to do anything for me. I'm going to have to work for everything. And yes, you do have to work for everything with me because we're out there to do what we do for these fans. And I'm not going to be a pushover for anybody. So anything you get, you earn. And those fans will believe it that much more and appreciate it that much more because you did not phone it in and you had to work for it.
Sounds good. Anything in particular coming up that you want to tell the fans about?
I know I have my first event in Kansas coming up. I believe the promotion's name is XCW. If I get the name wrong, I do forgive myself. CCWevents.net. CCW is my new home promotion. Been there for several months now. Former CCW Tag Team Champion with BJ Murdoch as a part of the Power. Currently training at their school as well, Main Event Training Center. I'm really just training and just looking for opportunities to show what I can do.
Sounds good. Now, we spoke a little bit, the past couple days, in the process of getting everything set up for the interview. And one of the things that we spoke about is the fact that you and I both have something in common other than the big man stigmata, and that is we both partake in doing DDP, yoga.
Yes.
What's that like for you as a big guy?
It's a struggle. I'm not even going to lie. I'm not going to BS anybody. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's tough. It's hard. It's something that I never thought I would be doing. But I'm glad somebody gave me the opportunity to give it a chance. It's something that's pushing my boundaries, pushing my comfort zone, and making me do things that I wouldn't think that I would do otherwise, and showing me that I do have the ability to actually do it. So it's definitely a positive change in my life.
So are you definitely taking his advice and applying smackdown in your life to succeed?
I definitely am. I'm definitely watching the gluten and watching what I take into my body. Trying to do the DDP yoga at least 2 to 3 times a week. If I can amp it up more, I will. Given the schedule of family, life, we all have those struggles. It's just trying to maintain balance and order and some semblance of organization and in factoring that in as well. It's a challenge. So.
Now, when you were a little kid and you were, a little baby Hughes, did you ever expect or ever dream of the fact that, hey, one of these days I'm going to be a pro wrestler and one of these days I'm going to be on top of my game and, wrestling over in Japan for everybody to see me?
You know what? Honestly, I can't say I did. I've always had the dream of wanting to do it, and that dream was really shown to me and really given to me by my grandfather, who's no longer with us. Being with him in summer of '94, being in New York with him, spending the summer with him, he introduced me really to professional wrestling and really helped build my love for it. There wasn't a Monday that passed by or Saturday night that passed by that we weren't watching wrestling and watching different types, whether it was WCW, WWE, or what have you, even going to local events in the area, and he really helped develop that love for me. And when I came back down to Florida, I harassed my mom about watching wrestling and just being a part of it. And she was, Mom was always like, okay, just get your education first. So I made that my priority. I'm currently getting ready to go back to school for my degree. Because at the end of the day, you have to have an exit strategy. But as far as me saying that I would be standing here at 27 years old, living my dream, I wouldn't have imagined it at all.
Now, when it comes to living your dream and realizing that, I'm doing exactly what I want to do, can you go back in time to when you were a little kid and think of that first match that you ever went to see live?
I really, really can't. The one match that does stand out to me during that summer was 1-2-3 Kid versus Razor Ramon. That was the story of the summer. That was the match above all matches because every time Kid came in there, Razor was handing him his behind, and until he got that 1-2-3, and just the reaction that the fans gave him when he finally, beat the big monster and slay the dragon, so to speak, that was that moment where I was like, I have to do this. That's what I want to do. I want to hear those fans cheering for me. I want to know what that feels like.
Very good. It sounds like you and I had similar, as far as the career itself, similar aspirations and stuff when it came to, being and defining what that big man stigmata is all about. I'm not a tall guy. I'm only 5'10", but I am, a year and a half ago I was 380 pounds. And do like yourself the DDP yoga. I've lost a grand total of 115 pounds now, and I've packed on about 15 pounds of muscle. So I still have that big man stigmata, if you will, because I'm short. So I look a lot heavier than I actually am. And again, people look at you, like you said, like, oh my God, this person's not going to want to do nothing. And then when they get into the ring with you and they start working with you, and I'm sure it's the same with you, they realize what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and how easy it is for you to actually do it.
Exactly. Given the opportunity, just let me work for you.
And that's the key. You've got to have somebody to give you that opportunity. And one of the things that I like what DDP says all the time is it's not about who knows you, it's about who's willing to say they know you. Because you can know the President of the United States, but that won't do you a bit of good unless he's willing to say, yeah, I know him, he's a good guy, and put his neck out there on the line.
Absolutely.
And that's the bottom line. As brothers in this business and sisters, if you will, we've got to watch each other's backs. And we've got to be willing to go that extra mile for our brothers and sisters as long as they're willing to do the same for us.
Exactly. And I think that's a major, major issue in the business today. Everybody is so fixated on, the old adage, getting their stuff in, that they forget that it's a dance. We're working together to an end goal. If we work together towards this end goal, we get more opportunities to work on those bigger stages and have more time in those matches to eventually get all your stuff in.
Exactly.
But right now, we need to work together.
No, I'm sure me personally, I'm an old school type of guy, and I'm sure being around Typhoon, you're probably old school as well. But I'm a big fan and big believer of I don't need 500 high spots and, flips off the top rope and, move for move for move for move. If I can tell the entire story in 3, 4, 5 moves and still get my point across and allow you to do the same thing, to me, that's a great match.
Absolutely.
And that the bottom line is we're out there to entertain the fans. And whether there's one person in the audience or 50,000 in the audience, we have to go out there and give each and every one of them the same show every night.
Absolutely.
All right. Is there anything in particular, like if anybody came up to you and said, hey, I'm thinking about becoming a pro wrestler, what would you recommend to me if I was becoming a pro wrestler? So I'm asking you, what would you tell somebody that wants to be a pro wrestler out there today?
I would honestly say get an education. Get an education because you never know what life is going to hand you. You never know if you're in the middle of this great, fantastic match and you slip off a rope or you misstep, you tear ligaments in your knee, you break your back, you break your neck, God forbid. If anything like that happens, show's over. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Your career is over, but life still goes on.
Exactly.
Have that fallback strategy, and that's what I'm looking into now and getting back into school, to have that fallback plan because nothing is forever. And
not to mention the fact that not all of us are fortunate enough to make that big paycheck, that big card with, like you said, WWE or TNA, and, the medical bills alone that would go along with an injury like that. If you're not making that kind of money to sustain it, you're equally as doomed.
Yep. Very true. There's been, unfortunately, there's been guys that do great, that have been tremendous wrestlers, tremendous talents, and have been on the unfortunate side of that spectrum. And, maybe the injury wasn't that detrimental, but like you said, the bills and the lack of finance and the lack of an income stream from not being able to wrestle has been detrimental. Absolutely. And, I can't imagine, I think back to like Ric Flair having a broken back or Draws, falling and becoming paralyzed. What if they didn't have that stability of their promotion that had paid them and made them who they were
to fall back on that money that they had made. They'd be in trouble.
That's very true. It's very true.
Any last words for the fans before we let you go? Because I know you're a busy man.
You know what? I really don't have much to say, but to continue to support good independent wrestling. Buy tickets. Come to shows. This is the foundation, people. This is the groundwork that we lay. So you have the talent that's in WWE. So you have the talent that's in TNA. So you have the talent in the PWGs and the Ring of Honors and all these great promotions. It starts at home and it starts locally. Support home. You know, I want to give a few shout-outs before I go.
Of course.
Beat Murdoch, the classiest man of professional wrestling, my brother, my tag team partner in the Power, the Dapper Dan Ragu, Jesse Vega, one of the best graphic artists I've known in a while. Just the whole Power Source family, all my friends' family, Pablo Marquez at the Main Event Training Center, numerous people, Typhoon, Uncle Fred, you know who you are. There's too many that I can list right now, my mother, my grandmother, and I love you all, and I continue to fight and strive for all of you.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate the interview. Thank you for being here on Wrestling Spotlight with us, and I definitely want to get you on again sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Just let me know, and I'm here, man. Thank you very much, Mickey.
All right, my brother. This has been Barrington Hughes, the Big Crush. Wrestling Spotlight. This is the man, the myth, the legend, the franchise, the monopoly that is Mickey Byggs. We'll see you next time at ringside.